Welcome to this episode of Your Ghana, My Ghana on the Traoré Effect. I am Dede, Amanor-Wilks, and we're on Graphic Online TV. Today, as we mark the anniversary of the June 4th revolution in Ghana, we're exploring the inspiring story of Captain Ibrahim Traore, the 17-year-old president of Burkina Faso, who's making waves across Africa with his bold vision and principled leadership. Our guests in the studio today are Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Fighters League, Ernesto Yeboah, and Pan-Africanist writer and changemaker, a.k.a. Manfo. Welcome, both of you. And we'll also be joined on the phone by Hiplife legend, Reggie Rockstone. But before we start our conversation, let's set the tone with this short video documentary. As Ghana marks another anniversary of the June 4th revolution led by Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings in 1979, the waves being made in neighboring Burkina Faso by revolutionary leader Captain Ibrahim Traore evoke memories of those heady days. June 4th was essentially a house-cleaning exercise by junior officers who staged a coup to oust generals and other senior military personnel, including 3 former heads of state who were perceived as corrupt and accused of bringing the Ghanaian economy to its knees. Their execution by firing squad was widely hailed at the time. Other acts, such as the razing down of Makula Market and the caning of market women by soldiers, reflected a seething anger that the country had fallen prey to kalabule, a system of hoarding and profiteering that made life unbearable for Ghanaians. The sense at that time that JJ, as he became known, was on the side of the downtrodden drowned out the outcry over human rights. Other initiatives, like mobilizing students to evacuate cocoa held up in farmlands by the collapse of roads and other infrastructure, and his hands-on approach to tackling problems added to his status as a popular hero. His popularity continued to soar even after he supervised elections and handed over power to a civilian government 3 months later. And 2 years later, he was back in another coup d'etat dubbed his Second Coming. This ushered in the December 31st revolution. But the revolution ran aground as Ghana ran out of money and the country was forced to turn to the International Monetary Fund. Rawlings became arguably the first leader in Africa to make an IMF austerity program stick. Previous attempts by other African leaders, including by Prime Minister Busia in Ghana, had resulted in military overthrow. But there arose dissent among and between ideological allies both within the armed forces and on university campuses, and a series of coup attempts resulted in a clampdown and the flight into exile of several cadres who had been part of giving the revolution its ideological coherence. In neighboring Burkina Faso, Traore, like JJ, has faced criticism for muzzling the press and silencing opposing voices. Yet Traore is widely admired for his bold vision, practical action, and principled leadership. Turning down assistance from the IMF, Traore, who studied geology at the University of Ouagadougou, established the country's first gold refinery. It has the capacity to process 400 kilograms of gold a day. This has enabled Burkina Faso to pay off its debts and redefine its relationship with international moneylenders. Traore quit the CFA zone and distanced the country from its former colonial master, France. This means that, unlike Rawlings in the past, Traore has not faced the frustrations of an economic squeeze or the exigencies of an IMF austerity program or the fallout with ideological allies that dampened revolutionary fervor in Ghana in the early 1980s. Together with Mali and Niger, Traore pulled Burkina Faso out of ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, and formed an alternative regional cooperation arrangement, the Alliance of Sahel States. He has beefed up national security and introduced sweeping initiatives to improve healthcare, maternal mortality, and access to food, housing, and economic opportunities. Traore's leadership hasn't gone unchallenged, but when the US Africa Command, AFRICOM's General Langley, accused Traore of misusing gold reserves, this sparked a backlash in Africa and worldwide protests in support of the Burkinabe leader. The Traoré Effect is a testament to the power of bold leadership and principled vision. As Ghana and Africa continue to navigate the complexities of globalization, Traore's leadership serves as a beacon of hope for a new era of African liberation and self-determination. Welcome again. We saw in that short video documentary some of the things that President Traoré has been doing since coming to power in September 2022. Briefly, what stands out for each of you? Akua?
I think what stands out for me is the sense of African pride he's bringing to the Burkina. You know, he's encouraging them to wear fabric, local fabric in uniform. The judges have got rid of the colonial wigs and they're using Burkina. So for me, it's that pride, that African pride that's giving the people. It's very, very important because if you know who you are, you're not going to bow to anybody else.
Right. Ernesto?
Well, for me, I think it's the sense of purpose and integrity and of modesty that he brings to leadership. It's what many Africans are craving for to see in their elected leadership that they are not seeing. I think that the biggest thing that Traoré does for somebody like me is to boil up the reimagination of democracy from the Western norms of democracy or how they have conceptualized it to what actually works for the people, what actually centers the will of the people. In this current, system, we've practiced for close to about 30 years, from 1992 to date, in fact more than 30 years now. Can we say, with all certainty, that the people are equal? We read every now and then the stealing that have taken place, and yet nothing happens. In fact, the impunity that we see, the indiscipline and all of that is not out of anywhere. It's from the fact that leadership in the country has lost that morality to be able to enforce a just and equitable society. And so the likes of Traoré brings, that ray of hope that, we still have people who understand integrity, who understand modesty, who knows exactly what the people are craving for and are just doing that. Like my sister Akua said, this guy has gone to the courts, taken off their wigs. How many times hasn't this come into the public domain? Taking off the white wigs and replace it with something indigenous, something us. And the kind of things that he's doing. Take the issue of mining. We have Galamsey on our hands. He says, you know what? Youth of Burkina Faso, continue to do your mining, but do it in the indigenous ways that our forefathers and mothers, did it. And it's happening without the pollution and devastation of river and water bodies and plant lives like we are seeing here in Ghana. And so Traoré means a lot of things to many people. But from our perspective, I think that this is where he resonates with us.
Very good. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Ernesto and Akua. Now let's get a take on what Reggie Rockstone thinks about this. Do we have him on the line now? Hello, Reggie. Reggie Rockstone. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Reggie, we want to find out from you what has impressed you about everything that you've heard so far about Captain Ibrahim Traoré, and also to ask you what made a Hiplife legend that you are decide to print Traoré t-shirts and to ask all his social media followers to change their DPs to the picture of Captain Traoré?
Right. Well, first of all, it's an honor to even be speaking on this because, most people don't really ask me nothing constructive when it comes to what I do. As I have spoken to the people before, I was raised Pan-African. My father was a Pan-African. So was my mother, and all my mothers. So this is something that comes to me like breathing. Also, the brother Traoré in my lifetime, I have lived long enough to have known about Brother Thomas Sankara, Brother Lumumba, all of them, Kwame Nkrumah, but never really had this close a story about them as Traore. Traore is about as close as I could get to somebody that shares these ideologies. And so he is really a big deal. And he is such a big deal to me that I felt necessary that I use my celebrity to translate the feelings that I have about all that's transpiring to the people who know me or who even have any respect for what I stand for. And this is the reason why I took this step. You know, it's in the same breath that I might do a commercial for Guinness or for whatever product. I figured this is even a bigger picture, a bigger story. And in my lifetime, it's also a great example to young folks to be politically inclined and to be a part of, what's taking place, because we are in really strange times and they're important times where they participate. Almost everything, because I don't know the man personally, but I can say for sure his boldness and defiance. Bruce Lee is one of my mentors, and he also teaches this, and his boldness is one thing to talk it, and it's another thing to walk it. He does both. He walks it, he talks it. He talks it, he walks it. And also, politics has a chess-like vibe to it, and he seems to be, I play chess, and he seems to be moving like he's on a chessboard. There are some sacrifices. Well, there are some sacrifices that he has had to make. I'm sure that he didn't want to, but it's just most necessary, considering all that's taking place, i.e., his alliance or his connect with Russia. None of them are supposed to be trusted as when it comes to Africa. But it's chess. You might have to sacrifice something to get to something, and all of these are chess-like. And so I suspect that he's moving in this vibe, in this vein. It could be more. I have complained about my disappointment, especially with the Ghanaian youth, and especially in Ghana, being that Ghana is synonymous with the word Pan-African through our OG, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. So I expected a little bit more noise to be made, but nevertheless, I was also impressed at those who moved with me. A lot of them changed, because, I had asked everybody to change the DP to a generated picture that I had, and which was the same picture that translated onto the one on the T-shirts, so it had a visual connection. And I saw quite a few, and I was impressed with that. And the reason for this is to remind them, and I will continue to do this periodically, to just remind them, because, with all the distractions, with the TikToks and whatnot, young people are just, they're just floating. And so I will use the same medium to remind them, because it's ongoing. You can tell by the vibration and the reaction of young Africans, not just in Ghana, but worldwide, And it's just always more, it's a booster of confidence when you can express yourself. If you listen to the old poem by the last poets, when he says the revolution will not be televised, and he also talks about the N-words, and he says, when you tell them it's time for the revolution, let's go. He said, brother, I was just playing, He said, I was just playing. It's in a poem by the last poets. You could just, So, that narrative or that vibe still runs with a lot of people.
We saw footage of you leading at least one of the marches in Accra. How did that happen?
Well, I've been a Pan-Africanist for over 30 years now. Africa is my everything. People that know me will tell you, I believe I was born to tell the African story and to empower Africans. So this is what I've been doing since my 20s. I'm over 50 now. And I saw the flyer for the walk, Ibrahim Traoré. I never say his name right, walk. So I contacted the person who did the flyer and I said, who is organizing this? And he said to me, he's a young guy in Tema, but the young guy is scared, so he's pulled out.
Yeah, to organize.
He's scared, yeah, because, so he's pulled out. And I thought, oh, we can't let this fail. And so I decided to take over. So I said to the guy, okay, I'll help you make it happen then. So I went with him to the police to try and get permits for us to walk. I started pushing it. But initially it wasn't me that did it. But because the young guy got scared, I felt it was my duty to make sure it happened.
This was the march in April?
That was the one in April, yes. Yeah, and that's how you saw me leading the march.
Okay. And subsequently there was a march on Africa Day in May. I think that was organized by you, Ernesto?
Yes.
Can you tell us something about your involvement in this March for Traoré agenda?
Well, I'd say that it was a Pan-African organization to the extent that the planning committee was made up of people from the provinces of South Africa, Zimbabwe, Tanzania. I mean, the complexion was Pan-African, and that was the beautiful thing about it. And right from the province of Ghana, we were able to point to locations in the other African regions, like Kenya, Sierra Leone, South Africa, even some occurring in the diaspora like Germany and the rest. And so for me, that was the beauty of the whole thing, that Ibrahim Traoré, by that singular move of taking power and vesting that power in the will of the people, has evoked a dragon in the African to believe once again that it is possible for Africans to unite or come together and have something done. And so that for me tells a bit about the organization that was seen on May 25th.
And a dragon in the Ghanaian too. How easy is it to get Ghanaians out demonstrating on the streets? Would you consider, how many came, and would you consider the march to have been a success?
I mean, it was a great success by all accounts. I mean, by numbers and all the difficulties or impediments that arose to ensure that it couldn't cut through. For instance, don't forget we are in the traditional month of ban on noise making and all of that. So that in itself imposed some, but I still want to say thank you to the Ghana Traditional Authority for their understanding that what was about to happen then was not noise making, but was imperative for Africans, I mean, to echo and re-echo, I mean, because there was a 30th and then ours was coming on the 25th. So I want to say thank you to them. The other factors that almost impeded that event from happening was the fact that it was on a Sunday. And we know Ghanaians don't play on their Sundays. So
Ghanaians go to church.
Exactly. I've organized demonstrations on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, but Sunday I have never done that. And so this was a very big challenge.
It just so happened that Africa Day fell on a Sunday.
On a Sunday, absolutely. And so to see a turnout of over 500 people on a Sunday under the conditions of ban on noise making and all of that, for me points to the fact that it was a major success.
And if we had, as you said, you've dedicated your whole life to the Pan-Africanist vision, to making it happen. And you are also very dedicated to the memory of Thomas Sankara, keeping that memory alive. Yeah. What makes you so passionate about Sankara?
I think when I discovered Sankara, I was impressed that a young man had achieved so much. Within 3-4 years of him taking power, Sankara was developing Burkina Faso, building railways, setting factories, cotton was being produced. Sankara believed that he had to empower women if he wanted true development, and he really pushed women. Sankara was amazing. But the thing was, he used to come to me in my dreams. I don't know how. Sankara used to come to me. He used to talk to me in my dreams and tell me, you can't give up. You have a role to play. You have a role to play. So I spent twice to feel like, leave me alone. He was always coming to me in my dreams. Yeah, it was crazy. When you come to my house in Ghana, the first picture is Nkrumah, the second one is Sankara. I'm obsessed with Thomas Sankara. He's just amazing. Absolutely amazing.
And you have said that you see Traore as the living Sankara.
Yes.
Sankara second coming.
Yes, he is. He's Sankara reborn.
And so do you think we're seeing a new era of African leadership?
I sincerely hope so. It's about time. Because the old leaders have shown us that they're not interested in developing Africa. They've shown us they'd rather be puppets to the colonizers. They've shown us it's about their pockets only. So it's time for new African leadership, and I really hope Traore is inspiring other young people to do exactly what he's doing. Yes.
And do you feel the same way, Ernesto? How do you see this in terms of African leadership trends?
Well, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful in the sense of all that has been said about Traore so far. You can also tell that this is a young man with good intentions. But our own history tells us that once upon a time, Jerry Rawlings also had good intentions. And so I am at a difficulty in pointing it out as what's happening in Burkina Faso right now as a revolution until we have seen the full picture. But from all indications so far, it looks to me that this is a revolution.
And so what similarities do you see with that history, June 4th, and what differences you also perceive?
Well, I see a passionate young man, an energetic young man, who is directing these resources towards the advancement and upliftment of the people. I see the connection between that and Rawlings's period, where students were so devoted, to that vision, to that cause, that they would absent themselves or opted to absent themselves from school, go into the village, cut cocoa, bring it to the ports so that the nation could make money. At the time when the country was in great need, people were devoted to that. They saw the vision and committed themselves to it. And I see that connection in Traore, in how he sees. When was it? I was watching a video the last time, and he was involved in a road construction himself, together with some young people, in building their roads. And he was talking about the fact that every part of Burkina Faso, especially in the city centers, has to be paved with pavement bricks and all of that. That tells me something that, okay.
Traore, Sankara was like that. Sankara was very much hands-on leadership. You saw him working with the people. You didn't feel, I'm the president, so I have to sit in V8 and come work with you. Because leadership is not about sitting in V8 and directing people and doing this. Leadership is not being afraid to get dirty with the people and doing the work that needs to be done. And Sankara and Traore were true leaders.
So we see that.
Yeah.
But then in Ghana, we also saw how there was a detraction from that vision that caught everyone on. Because when Jerry was saying, let my people go and try me instead, that was selfless, that was powerful, that was brave, that was courageous. We saw that. But the point about the revolution is that the leadership do not have to lose the moral leadership. That you have access to so much of the nation's coffers that you decide not to steal. That's what sets Kwame Nkrumah apart from all these leaders. That he had so much power to steal and decided that not even a cement block would be in his name. That commitment is fundamentally for me what Rawlings lost. Later on we came to see about in some cannery, going to their wife, and then it opened the floodgates for other ministers, I mean, within his team to also appropriate, I mean, from the states without recourse, because the leader himself had been stained. And so I'm hoping that Traoré doesn't stain himself in that way, that the revolution can be successful, as we've seen in Cuba, as we've seen of China, as we've seen of other places where, I mean, it happened. Take Gaddafi, for instance. In terms of housing, the story is told, and if it is not true, then I'm lying. But the story is told that he ensured that deliberately, until the last Libyan was accommodated in a decent housing, it could not have been extended to him nor to his family. And so for a very long time, we are told that Gaddafi lived in a tent.
Yes,
In a tent. That's the moral leadership of a revolution that the leaders don't have to lose. Once you lose that, you open the floodgates for, I mean, other things to happen. I think that there is also the bit about, yes, you cannot make omelets without breaking eggs. It can be understood.
Revolution is not a tea party.
And democracy, in its proper sense, can also not be a tea party. You cannot build a democracy without breaking some eggs, I mean, in that omelette. And so in both cases, it's not. And that's why this conversation for me is not about democracy versus autocracy. It's about what works for the people. It's not about American imposed institutions and forms of or understanding of democracy. It is what the people understand and feel and accept democracy to be. That is in context. And also whether the system is working for them or it is not working for them. If it's not working for her, I mean, many have questioned whether over 30 years of the 1992 Constitution has really served us. And it's a question worth asking. I mean, are young people comfortable? Do they have jobs? I mean, that's the 1992 Constitution promise. Do they have a decent place of, I mean, accommodation? Can they marry early? People are postponing their marriages. Young people are postponing their marriages. All of these, I mean, points to a certain lack of the ideal situation, ideal conditions that would have led to a better life and dignified life.
And in that context, going to the polls every 4 years just to say we're a democracy really doesn't cut it.
Precisely.
It doesn't satisfy the people. But the point you made about Kwame Nkrumah was particularly interesting because, as you said, he chose not to steal. Though when he came to, at independence, Ghana had a healthy budgetary situation. He inherited healthy coffers, largely, a lot of it due to the cocoa farmers, but the colonial government had kept that money in the UK, and Nkrumah chose not to steal. However, when you look at the different conditions during the time of the June 4th revolutionary moment, let's say, and subsequently December 31st, it was a very different state of affairs. Ghana was on its knees, almost literally on its knees. And like you said, the students who went to evacuate cocoa is because the road system had completely collapsed, everything had collapsed, and we couldn't get the cocoa from the hinterlands to the capital city, Accra. So in that context, can we talk about what Traoré has done in terms of Burkina Faso's gold? Because that to me is the one big thing that Ghana perhaps failed to think about doing. He now has that financial independence to be able to prosecute a revolution. We hope it will be a genuine revolution that will totally transform the lives of the whole society. But that one action of saying Burkina's gold is no longer going to be exported by anybody else but Burkinabe, that we're going to build a refinery. How much do you think, Akua, would you like to speak?
And that's the difference between leadership and non-leadership. You know, people think, oh, military coup. You have soldiers who are just shoulders. You have some who are leaders. Traoré is obviously a leader. What's a leader? Someone with vision, with ideas. And so he hasn't just done a coup for the sake of it. He's done a coup because he knows he can move his country forward. And one of the first things he did was say, hey, we're taking over our gold. It's very important. How can we have the natural resources and foreigners tell us how much we should get, how much they get? So it's very, very important what he has done there. He said, I'm so proud of him. You know, that it was one of the first things he did, and it's rightly so. Yeah.
It's given him that financial money.
Yeah. And look at the money he's brought in exactly. You know, money is power ultimately. Yeah.
Money is power. Now, Traore has been doing all these great things. He's been in power for more than 2 years now. But it's only now that he seems to be really trending. Does this have to do with the statement made by the African chief in April? The criticism of Traore's handling of the gold reserves? How has that impacted the consciousness of Africans?
I think that was certainly a triggering point and an immediate factor that led to the outpour that was seen. Apparently, people were watching, people were listening, but we're just watching and listening until those unfortunate statements came from the African Union. So that triggered something and you see, in the light of CIA declassified records and all of that, today nobody who is reading or has access to information can continue to bury their heads, in opposition to the truth that Nkrumah was not removed because he was a dictator. He was removed because he was working, for the interest of the people. Just like Gaddafi, just like Patrice Lumumba, and all. The CIA declassified records have said it themselves that, hey, this guy is so dangerous, he's advancing the cause of Africa. If we do not stop him, very soon there'll be nothing for us to take in Africa. All these types of informations we have seen in declassified CIA, how do you call the records and all of that. And so Langley's statement then triggered it that, oh, okay, so now that we have found another sensible leader who is prioritizing our needs and putting us first, you are taking steps to take him out. So that awareness, the consciousness that every sensible leader you get as Africa, we are going to take that person, off the scene, is also part of the
Every
undergirding
significant
reason.
person,
Such as Kwame Nkrumah, such as Patrice Lumumba, such as Magufuli, such as talk about Gaddafi. Look, Gaddafi produced the most prosperous modern state. That one can talk about. In light of his killing, we heard what Hillary Clinton said. Thanks to WikiLeaks.
we saw he died.
He died. So all of that points to the fact that, okay, Africa's progress is held down by artificial conditions. Why do we still have the likes of Eyadema still in charge? Why do we have that guy in Uganda, Yoweri Museveni, still there? Why do we? So those, talk about Mobutu Sese Seko. The guy was there for about 30 years of his, and so leaders that are doing absolutely nothing to uplift their people, ironically remain in power for long or for the rest of their lives. Whereas the ones that are thinking constantly about how to uplift their people are the ones that are killed. And so now there is that consciousness, and Ghanaians and Africans in general see that, okay, so this is where it's heading to, and that's why the support. So the support for Traore is not blind. It is conditioned or premised on the fact that he is delivering. And until then, if he falters and thinks that it is because he is Traore, he would have a shock of his life.
And a.k.a. you would add Thomas Sankara to that list of assassinations.
Oh, there's so many. The list is endless. There's so many. There's a lot. In Congo alone, what Leopold II did in Congo. Yeah, I mean, I think if you know history, you never accept things as they are. And so during COVID, I think a lot of people ordered books. There's nothing else to do. So they ordered history books, they learned about Africa, and they realized that, no, we've been lied to. And so now I'm seeing it played out again in the form of Ibrahim Traoré. They're ready to stand up and say, no, we're not going to sit down and let this happen again. You know, so for my books here, this book here is African history in the form of a word search puzzle, because I think learning history can be tedious, so I wanted to make it a bit interesting. So you're doing a word search puzzle and learning about the countries. Every country has its own page, and the first few pages tells you about who Africans were before we were colonized. You know, you tell, and then you.
I mean, this should be in our schools.
It's my dream. It's my dream to get it in every school. Yeah. So this one here is African history in the form of a word search puzzle. Because learning history can be tedious, let's face it. So how can I make it engaging? So you do the puzzle and you're learning about each country. Every country has its own page. So you learn when they were colonized, who by, etc. Yeah, you do the puzzle and learn.
Did you write these?
I wrote these books for 7 and above, I would say, up to 100. Anybody who doesn't know, black, white, Asian, everybody needs to read this book.
7 to 100 years.
7 to 100 years. This book is not African history. It's world history.
Wow.
You see, that's why I say it's not African history. Because Europeans colonized Africa, and Africa developed the world. So this is a world history book. Let's not limit it to African history. Yeah. Now this one here, people don't even know that there's different countries. It's Africa one country. They think it's one continent and we all speak one language and we all look the same. So in this book I explain that no, it's not one country. I show you the different type of Africans, different ethnic groups that you find on the continent. I show you that, and I profile each country. But what I did,
that's fair enough. But at the same time, do we not aspire to be one country?
Absolutely.
Well, we can't now. It's too late. How can we be one country now? Who'll be president? Where will be the center? What language? We can't.
You can make Traoré the president.
No, we can speak as one voice, but we can't be one country. So we can decide. Oh, let's trade. Let's sell as gold as one voice. Let's speak to colonizers as one voice, but we can't be one country. It's impossible.
I think on the contrary, I think that Africa can be one country. We were one before we were divided.
We were not one.
So we can have one currency, we can have one parliament, we can have one president, we can have one standing army, we can have one foreign policy. These are possible. Look, we can have a federation of African states under one government. And so it's
what to be our working language, Swahili.
Oh,
that could be
no, that's the thing. See, nobody will agree. Let's be realistic.
But in Ghana, every ethnicity has to be a state or a country on its own. But we are living as one people, and we can transcribe that at the continental stage. Speak your Swahili, speak your Tree, speak your Hausa.
What will be our working language? All these things are practical things that we need to talk about.
Look at what Traoré has done. What he did is to elevate all indigenous languages as the official language of the state. English is now second.
There's 2,000 languages in Africa.
No problem.
So are we going to use 2,000 official languages? Can I finish?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes. So is Africa one country? People think that it's just one country, but it's 54 different countries. So in this book, I profile the different countries, again, from 7 and above. Some people don't know. There could be 50, 60, they don't know. So it's an easy introduction. I love this book so much because I have redesigned it and made it into a bigger book. It was a very small book, but now it's a bigger book. It's interactive. The kids get to draw, they get to color. So yeah, you're learning and being interactive, you know. My dream actually is to get these books in all schools because we need to know who we are. If you don't know who you are, if you don't know your history, you can't even fight for yourself. So it's very important for our kids to know who they are.
And this is a very important project you are doing, and I want to encourage you to continue with it because there is a gap. You are looking for materials for young people, for kids in schools and all of that, that is African-centered.
Today, I hope we'll be able to continue the conversation in different directions in future. And thank you to Reggie Rockstone for joining us by telephone.
So although we didn't have an NDC representative with us today, we will be doing a follow-up program with some of the actors who were there at the time to look at the theme of the wasted revolution in Ghana. Thank you for watching this episode of Your Ghana, My Ghana on the Traoré Effect here on Graphic Online TV. Our guests today have been Ernesto Yeboah, a.k.a. Manfo, and Reggie Rockstone, and I am Dede, Amanor-Wilks. Please don't forget to like, subscribe and share. And you can join the conversation on social media using the hashtag #TheTraoré Effect. Let's build a brighter future for Africa together.